I just want you all to know that I was talking to my camera for about 30 seconds and I realized I didn't press the record button. So let's try this again. I'm Amanda and I go to the University of Florida, and I'm a sophomore, and last year, the summer after my freshman year, I studied abroad in Florence, Italy. So today I just kind of wanted to sit down and give you some of my top study abroad tips for studying abroad in general, but also specifically studying abroad in Florence because that's where I studied, so that's what I know most about. So if I'm looking at my phone a lot, it's because I have this very extensive list of tips to share with you guys. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is packing. When you are packing your suitcase, you really want to try and underpack, because I believe the weight limit for most airlines when you're packing a suitcase is 50 pounds, and then they charge you extra. So when you are traveling to your country that you're studying abroad in, you want to try to underpack so you're under that 50-pound limit. Okay, so when it comes to packing, I highly suggest you just pack basics for your clothing. So maybe like 1 jean jacket, 2 to 3 pairs of jeans, maybe like 1 or 2 pair of jean shorts, basic like plain t-shirts, tank tops, etc. Just because if you're packing a bunch of patterned things, it's really hard to make multiple outfits out of those, whereas if you pack basics, you can mix and match a lot. And when you're packing for over a month, that's kind of more convenient. And then also when you are like studying abroad, like you're gonna buy more clothes while you're there. When it comes to shoes, my tip is to only pack maybe 3 to 4 pairs of shoes. You don't need to pack 10 pairs of shoes. My Air Force Ones on the flight because they were my heaviest pair of shoes. And again, you want to try to limit the weight of your bag. So wearing your heaviest pairs of shoes on the flight is a good thing to do. What else? Oh, when it comes to heels, I really don't think it's worth packing a pair of heels when you're studying abroad in Italy, just because the stone, like the streets are made of cobblestone and they're very old, so most of the streets have a bunch of cracks in them, and so when you're wearing heels you will fall because your heel is going to get stuck in the crack. I've seen it happen to many students studying abroad, and it's really funny, but when you're the person that's falling, it's not so fun. My next tip is to check the weather before you go to the country that you're studying abroad in. For me, I just kind of assumed that Italy was going to be hot the whole time since it was the summertime, and I was so wrong. The month of May was kind of chilly for the most part, and it didn't really start getting hot until June, so I didn't have a lot of clothes for the chilly weather. But I ended up buying some things just because you're in Florence and the shops are amazing, so you're gonna want to buy things. But that's just something to keep in mind. If you are studying abroad in Florence specifically, I really advise you not to wear workout clothes just on your day-to-day, like walking around in the city, because a lot of people don't wear, actually no one wears workout clothes unless they're going to the gym. That's their sole purpose for them in Florence. And going off of that, if you wear like jean shorts in the city, you will get stared at, because I wore jean shorts to my first day of class, and then I quickly realized that no one wears jean shorts in Florence. Something else that you might want to pack is towels, because I was living in an apartment for the 6 weeks that I was in Florence, and they did provide bed sheets, but they did not provide towels, so I had to bring my own bathroom towel. And then I also brought like a pool towel. So when it comes to purses and backpacks, what I did was I brought one purse and it was a crossbody bag, and I really suggest that you have a crossbody bag when you are studying abroad, because when you are a tourist and people are going to notice that, and you don't want anything to get stolen off of you. So having a crossbody bag will ensure that like you're going to have your eyes on your bag the whole time, because it's going to be in front of you, whereas a backpack, everything's behind you. I had a backpack that I like brought with me that I wore like 2 classes, and that's where I had all my school stuff. But then when I was just traveling or walking around the city, I had my purse. And then also I really do suggest bringing a backpack, one because you're going to need it for classes, and also for the weekends I went on day trips, or I went on like weekend trips, and instead of bringing my whole suitcase with me, I just put clothes for that day or for that weekend in my backpack, and I had that as my like carry on for the different bus rides that I went on. If you are a female and you are watching this video, you are probably going to have your period at least once while you are studying abroad, and I did not know what the tampon situation was like in Florence, and I didn't really want to risk like having a situation where like I didn't know how to use their tampons, or their tampons like were uncomfortable for me, or I don't know. I just didn't really know what it was going to be like, so I personally brought my own box of tampons from the US, and I just took them out of the box and put them in like a bag just so they took up less room in the suitcase. So if you're kind of like unsure of like what the period situation is going to be like abroad, then I suggest bringing your own supplies, because it's not worth the hassle. So my last packing tip is to double check your prescribed medications, because I personally don't take prescribed medication, so I can't really speak too much on this, but I do know people that do take prescribed medication, and some of them had to bring like documentation with them, like showing like, hey, like this is my medication and I need it for such and such reason, because I think some countries limit like what you can take in. So if you are taking a prescribed medication, I would just go to your doctor and make sure that you have like the proper documentation, if you need that documentation. I think there's like a list that you can look up, and it'll show like what you need documentation for and what you don't need documentation for. I'm not too familiar with it because I didn't have to worry about that, but I do remember my advisors kind of bringing that up to me, so I thought I would just mention it in the video. Okay, now that we're all done with packing, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about money. So obviously the US, we have dollars, and in Italy they use euros. So something that I suggest is that you order 200 to 300 euros at your bank, and sometimes you have to order that a few weeks in advance before you study abroad, because they might not hold it. So if you go in a few weeks before you leave the country and you ask for that, then they will order it and you can go in and pick it up right before you leave. And I suggest bringing that much because although you can use like credit cards and debit cards abroad, some places in Florence don't accept card, they only accept cash, or you have to spend a certain amount of money to use a card. And then also when you are taking out money abroad in like an ATM, make sure that ATM is attached to an actual bank, because there were some ATMs in Florence that were just kind of freestanding, and a lot of study abroad students got scammed and like got their money like stolen. So definitely be aware of where you're taking your money out. And then my last tip when it comes to money is to make sure your credit card doesn't have, or your debit card like doesn't have an international like tax fee on it. I use Wells Fargo, and the debit card that I had, anytime you swipe it abroad, it charged like an extra percentage. I think it was like almost $5. It was either $5 or like 5% of a tax that they were going to charge you every time you swiped your card. And if you're studying there for 6 weeks, that adds up very quickly. So I ended up getting a credit card with a different bank that didn't have that extra transaction fee. So that's just something else to keep in mind. My next topic is going to be trips, and I just have a few things that I wanted to say about this. When you are traveling alone like me, I went to Italy by myself. I didn't have any of my friends come with me, and I just ended up making friends in Italy while I was there. And traveling can be kind of scary when you're alone, so what I found out that they had different study abroad travel groups. So I joined one, and the one that I joined was Smart Trip, and the people that were working the trips were only a few years older than me, so they were really relatable and really awesome, and I'm still friends with some of them today. And basically you kind of choose like where you want to go. They have different itineraries laid out for different cities, and so I think I went to almost all the cities in Italy just because they were so affordable. And then they kind of have an itinerary of the trip planned out already, so you don't have to worry about transportation. Some of the food is provided, but you do have to pay out of pocket for some food. And then there's different activities that are already included in the amount of payment that you're giving them. And then they also have additional opportunities that you can partake in, which will of course cost you extra, but trust me, it's worth it. I definitely saved money by traveling with Smart Trip, so I highly recommend that if you are studying abroad in Italy. But I do know that they have other locations throughout Europe. I am halfway through my list. I know it's long, but I just want to talk about my first few days in Italy and some things that I learned immediately that I just want to share with you guys. So I highly suggest walking your class schedule before your first day of class, and thank God I did this because I forgot to plug my phone in at night the night before my classes, and my phone died in the middle of the night, so I ended up waking up literally 10 minutes before my class start. Charge your phone overnight. Something else I really suggest is to bring a portable charger, because your phone does die a lot quicker when you're abroad, just when you're walking between classes and your phone battery is low, and you want to take pictures of the beautiful buildings and scenery. You're going to want to have that portable charger. When you're at the grocery store, bring a reusable bag. So maybe that's something you want to pack, or you can just kind of buy while you're in Italy, is a reusable bag, because they charge extra if you use plastic bags when you're checking out. Also, one more thing I want to say about grocery shopping and just food in general is that in Italy I found out that it's illegal to put preservatives in the food. So a lot of times, like, that's why people have smaller refrigerators in Italy, because they go grocery shopping multiple times a week, because their fruit will literally go bad in like 2 or 3 days. Alright, we are almost through. Next, I just have some general tips that I want to share with you guys. And the first one is, do not walk around the city at night if you are alone, because especially if you're a female, because the boys and men, I should say, in Italy are much more aggressive than the men in America, and they will come up to you and things will happen if you don't have a way to protect yourself. You're walking around alone at night. Just don't. Always go in groups. Even if you're a guy, there was a few guys that ended up getting mugged because they were walking around alone at night, and like people knew that they like weren't from there, because like no matter how hard you try to blend in, like you're still gonna stick out a little bit. My next general tip is to download Google Maps onto your cell phone. So I personally didn't have like a data plan when I was studying abroad. I just had my phone on airplane mode, and I logged into Wi-Fi wherever I was at to use my phone. And it was kind of hard to like get to places because I couldn't just pull up my maps on my phone. But something that I learned after like the first 2 weeks was that if you plug in an address into Google Maps while you're on Wi-Fi and you leave that Wi-Fi area, it will still take you to your destination, and then like it'll shut off because you're at your destination and there's no more Wi-Fi. But you don't need to be in Wi-Fi for the Google Maps to take you to your destination, which I thought was really cool. So I used that a lot to get to different places that I wanted to kind of just check out in Florence. My next tip is Uber in Florence is not a thing like it is in America. If you do decide to take a taxi and you have luggage with you, put your biggest suitcase in the trunk and don't put anything else in the trunk, because they charge you per bag. Plus, they charge you like however many minutes or miles it takes to get to where your destination is. So if you have carry-ons, bring that in the back seat with you, because they won't charge you for that. This is kind of a random tip, but don't drink a cappuccino after 11 a.m. because that's just what people in Florence do. They only have them in the morning, and if you have them in the afternoon, it just is kind of weird. You're at restaurants, they don't really split checks in Florence, so definitely download Venmo. That way, like, your roommate, if your roommate is paying for dinner, you can just Venmo them the money, or if you have cash, then you and your roommate can kind of like split your cash and pay for dinner that way. My last tip is restaurants usually close in the early afternoon and don't open up again until 7, so that is just something that you want to keep in mind. So make sure your eating schedule kind of follows the restaurant schedule, because there were definitely some times that like I got like my eating times a little mixed up, and then I kind of like went hungry for a few hours just because nothing was really open, and or I would just go to like the market and like buy something like that instead. But yeah, just keep that in mind. That is all I have to share about my tips for studying abroad in Florence. I also have a blog, and on my blog I created a guide to Florence, and there's a lot of like additional information about restaurants to go to, places to see, and then also I think I do have some tips listed there. But if you're looking more for restaurants to go to in Italy, or specific venues and places that you to check out when you are in Italy, then I highly suggest you take a read. So thank you guys for watching my video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of my videos, please like and subscribe, and also comment down below where you've studied abroad, or if you haven't studied abroad yet, comment where you're going. And yeah, have a great day, guys.